Welcome to Into the Blue, presented by Penelope Bourbon, a weekly look behind the scenes of the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Into the Blue. And I should start this episode by saying that you obviously do not see Julie Stewart-Banks or Gabby Shirley, and you will unfortunately have to deal with just me, Ben Pierce, on this solo edition of Into the Blue, as my two co-hosts are either being a mother or dealing with the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy. So it is just me here at Benchmark International Arena. The good news is, though, folks, we have still a lot to talk about as the Olympic break is officially set in stone. The players have taken off to Italy. We've seen practices. We've seen some Olympic lines. And we did get some injury updates from Lightning coach John Cooper before the team left. So lots to talk about. We'll give you a quick update here before we take our official break. And then we will get to see who takes home the gold medal. This will be the final Into the Blue podcast before we come back for the Olympic break. So with that said, Tampa Bay does enter the Olympic break on a 5-game win streak. Obviously, everybody saw the big hoopla with the outdoor game, the Stadium Series, fantastic comeback. But the wins have kept stacking up before and since then. Tampa Bay enters the break 37-14-4. They are top in the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference right now with 78 points. Do you remember when the Colorado Avalanche were this titan atop the NHL and everybody thought there is no way anybody is catching the Colorado Avalanche this year? Just keep Colorado up here and then everybody else is going to be playing for that second spot in the NHL. The Lightning currently are 5 points back of the Colorado Avalanche at the Olympic break. They could catch the Colorado Avalanche here. There's about 30 games left in the season, just under that. This Lightning team all of a sudden is looking very, very strong. And obviously we've seen this team go, 19-1-1, I think, over their last 21 games. They look good. I mean, only Colorado has allowed less goals this year than Tampa Bay. This team has scored plenty. We've seen games with 8 goals, 7 goals, 6 goals. We've seen them also defend a lot tighter over this last stretch. And I think that's, as we've talked about so many times on this podcast, why these wins have really started to stack up. Obviously, it helps when you've got a guy in Andrei Vasilevsky who's in your net. He's really started to show what we expect from him. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, he's in the running for the Vezina Trophy as well. So this team is really starting to take form as we expected when this season started. Slow start is way in the rearview mirror now. This team, it looks like when they come back to the Olympic break, knock on wood, can keep it rolling. We'll see. The number to me, though, that sticks out from this season, do you remember at the start of the year when the team was off that slow start and people were freaking out because Nikita Kucherov was just a point-per-game player? Just a point-per-game player? And they were like, what's going on with Kuch? I put this number out on social media last week, but since January 1st, you guys, so in just over a month, Nikita Kucherov has 11 goals and 40 points in 16 NHL games. 40 points in 16 NHL games. The next closest in the NHL is Vegas forward Mark Stone, an Olympian, with 29. You're like, okay, 40 points, 16 games. Yeah, that's really good. To put that into perspective, you guys, that's more than the leading scorer for the entire NHL season on 4 NHL teams. He would be the leading scorer for Calgary, Seattle, St. Louis, and Vancouver for the entire 2025-2026 NHL season if you took Nikita Kucherov's numbers since January 1st. Think about that. In 16 games of NHL hockey, he would lead 4 NHL teams for the entire season. And if you go back about 2 weeks, that list more than doubles. It's insane the season he's having. He's got 91 points now. He's third in the NHL. He's 5 back of McDavid, Connor McDavid, for the NHL scoring lead. And McDavid has 7 games played, more than Nikita Kucherov. Nikita Kucherov has a very real shot of the three-peat at the Art Ross here as the scoring champion. we've seen lots of dialogue over the Olympics and whether or not Russia should be there, what this tournament would look like if they were. Regardless, Nikita Kucherov is full speed ahead. We are seeing the best of Nikita Kucherov we've seen all year, and the rest of the NHL has to be sitting there saying, it doesn't matter the other injuries this team has, because if they've got Nikita Kucherov in the lineup, they can beat us. And that is a cold, hard fact. Every team, you need a team effort. Hockey is different. It is a team game. You need multiple guys to beat any given team. But Nikita Kucherov gives you a chance to win every single night, and he's doing it every single night right now. Greg Wyshynski of ESPN, he was here just last week for the Stadium Series game. He had an article last week polling real voters, people who will actually vote on the NHL awards. All right? As of right now, he had Kucherov in the conversation as a finalist for the Hart Trophy. Anthony Cirelli, as a finalist for the Selke Trophy as the NHL's best defensive forward. And obviously that's impressive because we obviously have seen Cirelli miss some games. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. Cirelli was a finalist last year for the Selke. He's been so good defensively over the last several years. But the two things that really stood out from Greg's article, Andrei Vasilevsky, as of last week, was the favorite to win the Vezina Trophy as the NHL's best goalie. He's tied for the NHL lead in wins. He's up there in save percentage, right around .920. He's having another great year. But I think for every Lightning fan out there, if you read that article, the one thing that should really stand out, John Cooper, as of today, and I should say as of today, as of last week, is the NHL favorite to win his first Jack Adams Award. And I think we've talked so many times on Into the Blue about how does this guy not have one already as the NHL's best coach. If he doesn't get one this season, there is something seriously wrong with the voting and the award system. But the people who will seriously vote, who will actually take paper and pen, and in 2026, Steve, you think there's no way they use paper and pen still, right? That's got to be electronic, right? Come on. Okay. But whoever votes on these awards, and it is writers and the people that are going to vote on these, John Cooper, it sounds like, is finally getting the recognition that he deserves. And hopefully he does, because what he's done with this team is remarkable. It's been a great run for this team. And you just can't say enough about John Cooper, Vasilevsky, Nikita Kucherov, what they've done. And so many good storylines continue as we enter this Olympic break. Unfortunately, though, you guys, it was not all positives last week. It is a tough transition, but the Lightning did lose a player last week in the organization. We did see Jack Finley, the young center, get claimed on waivers by the St. Louis Blues on Saturday. The 6'6", 23-year-old center was a former second-round pick by the Bolts in 2020. He played 22 games this year, had 2 goals, 1 assist, and 3 points. You know, we talked a lot about, you know, this was a guy that seemingly was getting breakaways left and right for this season, and you talked about how does a guy who's 6'6" sneak behind the defense. We kind of poked around and we're like, that's kind of a crazy trait there. But really, face-offs is where he flourished in the AHL. And he's talked about wanting to improve his puck skills and his skating. We talked a lot this preseason. When I talked to him, he wanted to become a full-time NHLer this year. For the most part, he's done that. He's obviously played 22 games instead of the full 50-plus. But he's taken steps toward that. We'll see if he can really grab a hold of that more in St. Louis. But Connor Geekie told me earlier this year that he makes it easier to be on the ice. Jack Finley does. And now he'll get a chance in St. Louis. He's a great guy, so we wish all the best to him. We'll see what he does with it in a place he knows well. Obviously, St. Louis is a place Jack Finley was born, actually, as his dad, Jeff, played for the Blues. So Tampa Bay, we'll see what that means for the roster moving forward if we see some call-ups. But if there is maybe a silver lining from this, the Lightning are going to have to make some roster moves because despite the claim of Jack Finley, I think the Lightning obviously were hoping he was going to clear and go down to Syracuse and play some games there. Guys are getting healthier, and there are more tough decisions coming for this group because we saw Charles-Edouard Dastou, Braden Point, and Emil Lilleberg all skate last Thursday for morning skate. We'll see where they stand after the break, but it's obviously good to see those guys back on the ice. Anthony Cirelli, like we talked about, is out currently with an upper body injury. Nick Paul is out with a lower body injury. They're both battling, so there's decisions that are going to have to be made. We're not 100% sure where they stand timeline-wise, John Cooper said they'll be reevaluated after this Olympic break. So the lineup, we'll see what happens. Obviously, 2 weeks for this Olympic break is a lot of time. We'll see what it all turns out to look like when everybody comes back from Italy and the guys get a chance to get back on the ice. But maybe we finally get to see some guys we haven't seen in quite a while. I think the good news is, obviously, Braden Point, the decision for the Olympics, as we'll get into in a little bit here, that really did come right down to the wire. And it was kind of a last-minute decision on whether or not he was going to play for Team Canada. So hopefully that means he's going to be good to go out of the break for the Lightning. We'll see what exactly that timing means. And guys, like we said, the Lightning are officially on break. You know, the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy are here. We've seen all sorts of lineups and combinations, and everybody's freaking out about why is my guy here and not there. 8 different Bolts are playing in this year's Olympics, as well as Syracuse Crunch forward Wojtek Stachowiak, and he's playing for Team Germany, which is great to see. The Syracuse Crunch, by the way, I don't know if anybody else saw the T-shirts that the Crunch guys showed up to the other day in the rink. I thought that was pretty cool. They had some pretty sweet T-shirts for Wojo to kind of send him off to Germany. I thought that was a pretty cool gesture, so shout out to the guys in Syracuse for that. And Wojtek, when I talked to him this year too, he said that was a big goal of his. He wanted to play NHL games this year for the Lightning, but he also wanted the chance to play for his country in Germany. And now he's going to get the chance to do that. And that Germany team, I mean, they got one of the best players in the NHL in Leon Draisaitl, right? They've got some talent in Germany. Obviously, it's going to be an uphill climb, given that all the NHL guys are back playing in this year's tournament, but I'm sure that's going to be a great experience for him. Obviously, Lightning coach John Cooper and GM Julian Brisebois will both be there for Team Canada, and they'll be joined by mental performance coach Ryan Hamilton with that Canadian squad. Brandon Hagel will play for Canada. Jake Gensel, for all of you United States listeners, congratulations. You guys can cheer for Jake Gensel, who opened, by the way, practice on Team USA's top line the other day, skating alongside Captain Austin Matthews and Matt Boldy of the Minnesota Wild. So everybody here in Tampa knows how great Jake Gensel has been. Clearly, Team USA thinks fairly highly of him. And Bill Guerin obviously has had a big part in that Team USA lineup and building that team. He knows Jake Gensel well. And it's pretty obvious that Jake's going to play a big part in USA's push for their first gold medal since 1980. That big miracle on ice. So we'll see. I think everybody here is pulling for it, unless you're maybe John Cooper. Maybe there's some guys here in Tampa who aren't. But for the most part, don't tell too many of the guys in the room. But I think we're hoping for Jake Gensel's the one that comes back with that gold. We'll see. Denmark will be represented by Oliver Bjorkstrand. Zemgus Girgensons will play for Latvia. We mentioned Stachowiak in Germany. J.J. Moser in Switzerland. Eric Chernak is playing for Slovakia. And, of course, Sweden is the lone Lightning team that has multiple players with captain Victor Hedman and forward Pontus Holmberg. So a big list. Obviously, this list does not include 2 players that we hoped to see there. 2 guys who we thought would be there in Braden Point and Anthony Cirelli. Unfortunately, they're both going to miss this tournament due to injury. And gutted was the word used by their coach and used by their teammates last week. You really do just feel awful for these 2 guys because they would have helped Team Canada. And you think about how hard that they've worked and what they've done for this group. It's tough. And Point specifically worked so hard to get back to play in these Olympics. And while it didn't work out, you know that both he and Tony will only use this the right way and be ready to work when they get back. And we did just learn, by the way, that Eric Chernak has been named an alternate captain for Team Slovakia. So he joins Captain Victor Hedman here in Tampa Bay, who will be an alternate captain for Sweden. So you look at this list of Lightning players, obviously one of the most well-represented NHL teams at the Olympics, and now they're getting leadership roles for their countries too. It's an impressive group. We knew that already here, but the fact that they're getting that recognition on the international stage is pretty cool. So lots of reasons to watch. The games begin here in 2 days on Wednesday. So make sure you're ready, because although there's not much Lightning hockey, there is still plenty of Bolts to watch out there during this Olympic break. Again, just if you want to watch hockey, you guys, I promise you, this is going to be worth your time. I know you haven't had the chance these last couple years. I just realized it's been more than a decade, right, since we've gotten to see NHL players at the Olympics, and you never know what the next time you're going to get to play, and you hear that from the guys in the locker room about the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Even as fans, I think, don't take for granted the fact that you're getting to watch these guys on the international stage, because it's never a guarantee, and it's great to see. Congrats to Cherney, Hetty, and everybody at the Olympics. We'll have coverage for you guys throughout the week. Going to be all sorts of good stuff, but hopefully we get to see some great hockey, and most importantly, please God, no injuries, please. We don't need any more of those here. We had tons of questions, by the way, in the Blue Line segment about the Olympics, so we will go to that now. For those of you who are looking to submit questions, you can call 813-301-6749. And obviously, we do put those out on social media as well each week. But Lopez asked, will the rest of the team in Tampa continue normal practices, or are they taking the rest with the Olympics? And I will just say that they will certainly be taking the time away from the rink at least this week. Now, this is an important note because teams actually aren't allowed to hold events or practices until February 17th. The Lightning plan to hold their first practice on February 18th, and then they can be back to it. The gold medal game is on the 22nd, but I actually asked John Cooper about this question last week, asking, for the guys that aren't going, what do you want them to do during this break? And I thought his answer summed it up perfectly.
Oh, man, get away, digest. I hope the one thing about when you call Tampa home, you never know, are they going to go somewhere but the weather's even better, or do they say, I'm going to the snow, which for a lot of, guys, it's probably not that way. But get away from the game. It's they've done a heck of a job, and it's a grind, to finish this out, and hopefully, we can secure a playoff spot, and then it gets even tougher. So get away, forget about this for 10 days, and come back rejuvenated.
And I think that's the perfect way to put it, right? All these guys going to the Olympics, they talk about the high energy. It's something they've worked their entire lives for. They're going to come back ready, energized. And I think for the guys that aren't going, it's a different experience when you're not going, but they get to come back refreshed and rejuvenated, and the team can definitely use that. So, Lopez, thank you for the question. With that said, I think everybody knows that a guy like Nikita Kucherov is probably going to be skating throughout the break on his own. We'll see when those practices open. We just talked about guys who've been working back from injury. Hopefully we see all those guys on the ice working back together. We'll see. And as these players do slowly, as their teams get eliminated from the Olympics, they will be coming back to join practices and things like that. But like I said, the gold medal game isn't until the 22nd, so we will not see everybody when those practices resume here in Tampa on the 18th. And hopefully for a lot of our guys, that means they're playing in those medal rounds, but we'll see. So, Jeff Yates on Blue Sky asked, any expected roster moves JBB might make for a run? With the young players playing so well, would that sway JBB to make moves this offseason or trade deadline by letting go of a notable player or two? This is always a tough one to answer. And I know that the guys on Power Lunch have talked a little bit about this. You never want to throw out names of guys, things like that, because you just never know, right? With that said, I fully expect that Julian Brisebois is going to make a move at some point. He said in his midseason media availability, obviously the injuries have clouded things this year, right? It affects your ability to build and your salary cap situation to grow. When you have guys on IR and you're calling up guys, it affects your salary cap situation. I just keep imagining this team with one more top nine forward, proven top nine forward. And I think it'd be really interesting, mostly because of all the injuries this year, right? I don't know. We haven't seen this team at full health, I don't think, essentially since opening night, really. And I think you look at that, it can't hurt to at least be looking. And typically teams shedding players like that are looking for future assets like draft picks or prospects. you never know what that looks like. And again, I'm not an NHL GM, very clearly, obviously. With that said, I would be surprised to see them move too much off this current roster. I mean, this team has got one of the longest playoff runs in the NHL. They're one of the best teams in the NHL for a reason. They talk so much about the culture and the core of this group, and they obviously still believe very strongly in this core. And John Cooper believes in his guys, and I think that that's a big part of why they've had so much success. So we'll see. This team is in win now mode. They're playing well. I don't know that it makes much sense to break up that group. And if they were to go someone with term or higher salary, obviously something does have to go the other way to make that work. But you have to be really careful when you're messing with chemistry, especially like we just said, on a team that's won 19 of its last 21 games. I don't know that makes a ton of sense. And there are guys who get paid a lot more money than I do for a good reason to make those kind of decisions. And I just think when you look at this roster and what they're doing, decisions are going to have to be made. And we talked about the injury situation, right? Regardless of whether it's a trade, waivers, roster moves are coming, right? We had questions about waivers. Declan Carlisle now needs to clear waivers if they are going to sign him. Curtis Douglas would need waivers. Scott Sabrin would need waivers now that he's played 10 games for the Lightning. And I've said this, I think, just last week, like, it's a credit to these guys that have come up to the Lightning and played for the Lightning from the Syracuse Crunch, that these aren't easy decisions because so many guys have stepped up for this group and played so well. So whether it's opportunities for guys in Syracuse or whether it's on the trade front, we'll see what this lineup looks like. The biggest thing for me is I can't wait to see what this lineup looks like when it's fully healthy, because I think you have a lot more options than anybody thought even when this season began. And I think you look at that Hounds line of Gergensons, Gord, and Holmberg, I think that's really the only line that hasn't changed over the last even month because of all the injuries, because of all the different things when they've tried to spark different guys, get different guys going and scoring. So it does give you a lot of flexibility, a lot of options. Just kind of looking at it, like we've seen Cirelli, Hagel, and Kucherov, Gensel, Point, Gonsalves, Bjorkstrand, Paul, and James. And then for a while there, right, like with all the injuries, we've seen James and Gonsalves in the top 6 a little bit. And I don't know. You have so many different options, and there's some young guys obviously playing more than I think anybody expected at the start of the year. You have options, and that's a really, really good thing for this team. I just would say be careful about messing with that chemistry too much. And I think this is also a good time to say that this defense, I don't know that anybody gives that group enough credit, because a lot of guys have stepped up this year, particularly you look at J.J. Moser, and we've talked a lot about Darren Radish, and deservingly so. He's coming up on one of the best goal-scoring seasons by a defenseman in Lightning history. Like McDonough and Chernak have stepped right into where they were when they played together for all those golden years here. But like Dastu, Lilleberg, Crozier, you just go down the list of that defensive group. I don't think anybody expected this defensive group to hold up as strong as it has with all the injuries. So shout out to those guys as well. And this roster looks really, really good right now. And you just have to give them credit. Somebody else, by the way, that deserves credit is our good friends at Penelope Bourbon. And I was just telling Steve before we got on here when he grabbed the bottle out of the box, this season Penelope Bourbon is a proud partner of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Whether you're cheering at Benchmark International Arena or you're raising a glass at home, Penelope Bourbon brings fans together. That's one pour, one moment, one win at a time. And you can find Penelope Bourbon at Publix or right here in the arena. Go Bolts. I will tell you that our bottle today for the show is the Black Walnut Old Fashioned, and this is the one that I was telling Steve about, that when we first got sponsored by Penelope Bourbon, I went out and was looking at it. I originally bought, I believe it was just the traditional Penelope, and then I found this, and I was like, oh, I'm from the Midwest, from Wisconsin. Old fashions are a big thing back there. I'm like, I got to try this, right? Ready to go, ready to drink out of the bottle. and it was absolutely delicious. Maybe a little bit too delicious because we got after it that night, and it was very good. So highly recommend Penelope Bourbon. Can't say enough good things about it. Almost could be a plus here this week, but it won't be. It's good stuff, so highly recommend. With that said, my plus for this week on the plus minus segment, just going to be enjoying these next few weeks of hockey, right? I mean, we're going to get to see the best on best, you guys. And like I said, don't take that for granted because this is not something that's ever a guarantee. And at most, we get it every 4 years with the Olympics. But again, this is our first time seeing it in more than a decade. So take this in, enjoy it. And I don't really know what to expect. You know, obviously, as an American, you're rooting for Team USA. But I think there's a couple of teams here that really have a chance. And you know, I thought it was funny when Coop said the other day that the second I walk out these doors, the Maple Leafs on. And, you know, Hags and Gens were giving each other a hard time with the Stadium Series game about, you know, we're not going to be talking to each other. And it's just enjoy it because this should be a lot of fun. And you're going to get to see true best on best hockey. And don't take that for granted because I think even I forgot just how much of a gift that is over the last 10 years because of just the hype and the excitement of seeing some of these line combinations. It's almost like something out of a fantasy hockey pool, right? You're seeing these different combinations get put out there on social media, and you just can't wait to see some of these guys get to play together. So make sure you enjoy that. I know I definitely will be. My minus, and I actually haven't had a chance yet to talk to our great radio director here, Mr. Versnick, about this yet, but my minus is going to be that horrible Super Bowl last night. That Super Bowl was brutal. And we talked, I think, a little bit, though, in the past about my kind of embarrassing Jets fandom as a growing up. Sam Darnold was my guy. There was actually a Sam Darnold jersey in a closet somewhere at my parents' house. So happy for Sam Darnold to get Super Bowl. I was super excited for a great game, given how these two teams looked over the last couple weeks. We definitely did not get a great Super Bowl. Yeah, just a snoozer. So that's got to be my minus, I think, is this your Super Bowl? Despite the final score, maybe, you know, if you were to look at it in the paper day, you'd be like, okay. If you didn't watch it, you'd be like, it doesn't look horrible. It was pretty bad. And honestly, the commercials were pretty brutal too. Like even like my wife, she normally likes the commercials more than the football, but she does enjoy. She's into the big fantasy football thing now too, though. So she enjoys football, but she wasn't very impressed with the commercials, and it wasn't a great Super Bowl this year. Happy for Sam Darnold. Other than that, though, I think the minus has got to be the Super Bowl. So it was tough, but you know what? The NFL season is over, and that means that all focus, you guys, is officially on NHL hockey and the push for the Stanley Cup playoffs, and that is exactly what the Lightning are going to be doing here in very short order. And with that, I hope that all of you enjoy your Olympic break. We will have lots of bolts to keep track of, as we talked about, and I will have plenty for you to read at the Lightning website in the coming weeks, both on the games and some of our Lightning connections to the Olympics as well. Like I said, a lot of these guys, this is a lifetime dream for them, and they were fortunate, or I shouldn't say fortunate. I was fortunate enough that they sat down with me to talk about it. So lots of good stuff coming for you. Thank you so much for listening to this solo episode of Into the Blue, and I will talk to you all in a few weeks, along with a special visitor co-host, while Julie is still enjoying her time in Italy. We will talk to you soon. I hope you all have a fantastic couple of weeks off.